All right, we're going to start our regularly scheduled zoning hearing meeting for tonight. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we're going to do a moment of silence for the shooting in Texas today. So. All right. So let's get to our first application, which on the agenda is for.
We have.
That's what
okay.
I was going to go to. On the agenda, it's 4-2 of 22, which is which has been continued.
Yes, application 4-2 of 22 has been continued by agreement of the parties. We've received an extension of time from the applicant, and that will be continued to the regularly scheduled hearing on June 28th at 7 p.m. at the Township Building.
And then just as, so we can get the continuances out of the way, we also have a continuance of, what is it, 5-1 of 22?
That is correct. Application 5-1 of 22 has been continued by the agreement of the parties. We have an extension of time from the applicant and the township in this particular matter, and that will be continued to a special meeting on June 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Township Building. And then the final administrative matter, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Zoning Hearing Board had met in executive session to discuss litigation related to 1136 Old Lane in Drexel Hill, which was previously before this board. An appeal was taken to Delaware County, and there was a discussion of a stipulation between all parties, the township and the applicant, to settle that matter. At this time, we would need a motion and a vote to ratify the approval of the Zoning Hearing Board for that stipulation.
So I will make a motion to approve that motion or that stipulation.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes. All right, so now we will get on to our actual applications for tonight. The first one being 4-7 of 22. It's the application of MCBH Drexel Line Plaza LP for a variance from section 550-37G3B to permit welcome to Upper Darby ground sign on the same lot as a Wawa freestanding sign. Variance from section 550-37.G3C to permit a 24 square foot cabinet sign for the anchor tenant Shoprite, exceeding the maximum 8 square feet permitted for individual establishments. Interpretation of the 14 square foot digital cabinet sign does not qualify as a sign identified as an individual establishment under section 550-37.G3C, or in the alternative, a variance to allow a 14 square foot digital cabinet sign. Variance from section 550-37C4 to permit the lowest edge of the Wawa freestanding sign to be less than 8 feet in height. Determination that the Wawa gasoline spanner sign are permitted under section 550-37, or in the alternative, variance to allow Wawa gasoline spanner signs. Any other variance or other relief deemed necessary to develop the property as described. or as depicted in the plans permitted as part of this petition. This property is situated at 5100 State Road in Upper Darby. It's in the C2 Commercial District and in the First Council District.
And prior to beginning, the zoning hearing board will enter some exhibits. Zoning hearing board 1 will be the application. Zoning hearing board 2 will be the addendum to the application. ZHB 3 will be the letter to Jay Chast from HF McHugh dated April 4th, 2022. ZHB 4 will be the deed. ZHB 5 will be the zoning signage exhibit prepared by Bowler Engineering. ZHB 6 will be the leased premises plan prepared by Bowler Engineering. ZHB 7 will be the sign images, and ZHB 8 will be the sign plan prepared by Bergman. Also, is anyone present who's not with the applicant for this application? Just making sure. All right, thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Fintan McHugh. I represent MCBH Drexeline Plaza LP, the owner of Drexeline Shopping Center. With me tonight is Frank Russo, who is our architect. Also, we have Kristen Ritz from the project engineer from Wawa, and we also have Dan Shabel, the vice president of MCB Real Estate. Jeff Nurk is also here, and he's on behalf of Shoprite. As the board is aware, Drexeline is being completely redeveloped, and we think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the township. We have put together a professional-looking sign package that is part of the exhibit package tonight. The signs include a Welcome to Upper Darby ground sign that's at the corner of Township Line Road and State Road. There's also a Wawa gasoline freestanding sign, the typical one that you see at Wawa gas stations. Notably, we are withdrawing the request for relief for that sign because I had discussions and shared some measurements with Mr. Chast, who has determined that it meets the minimum 8-foot height for the bottom edge of the freestanding sign. So that request for relief is being withdrawn. The freestanding sign is compliant. The reason we're here for relief as to the Wawa relates to the spanner signs, and those are the red signs that go between the pumps. When you're pumping gas, they span between the pumps. But they're, I think, as you'll see, relatively modest. There's also the Drexeline Town Center has some freestanding signs. There's one at each entrance. There is a main freestanding sign at the main entrance with a traffic light, and there are some smaller freestanding signs at the secondary entrances. The relief that we're seeking relates to the Shoprite anchor tenant that we have, which has a larger than permitted sign that says Shoprite, and there's also a relief as to the electronic message board that we're requesting. The exhibit package has Exhibit A1, which is the affidavit of posting of the notice. And otherwise, I would get into the other exhibits with my first witness, Frank Russo.
Rick, just 1 second. So you're withdrawing the variance request for 55-37C4. That's the correct section?
I believe so, yes.
And I just saw some, if you can indulge me for a second, some members of the audience join us. Are you here for a particular application in the first row here?
Or the Agnew Drive application?
So that application has been continued until June 28th. So that we'll hear that on June 28th.
Unless you want to stay for the meeting. Just to get the flavor of the meeting, maybe we should.
We enjoyed it.
You absolutely can. You're welcome. And then I did notice an error on my part. We'll enter ZHB 9 as the notice photos and ZHB 10 as the proof publication. Mr. McHugh?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Would you like to swear in? I should have 3 witnesses. Should they all be sworn in at the same time?
I think you want them all at once.
Hi, what are you going to be testifying? Can you stand up, please? And raise your right hand. Do you swear or
Ma'am, do you have a question?
I just wonder if I could ask a question. So, this will be a variance that will be postponed until 28. So if, I'm a neighbor, petitioner.
Want this on the record? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think so.
It's just a question. So if we did want to address the board, whether we're for it, against, or whatever, would we be able to do that?
You absolutely will. There are opportunities. There's two ways to participate. One is if you feel that you're particularly affected by the application, you can request what is called party status, and you will have the right to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses or present testimony of your own, or there will be an opportunity to present public comment, which is just a statement in opposition or in support of the application. We
So do I have to do anything beforehand, or
Nope.
just show up?
just show up, and when we ask for public comment, you can just raise your hand and we'll call you forward.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. My first witness would be Frank Russo.
RUSSO.
And, or as long as the board and Bridget can hear you is the better.
Good evening, Mr. Russo.
Good evening.
Can you please tell the board who you are, what your profession is, and how you're employed?
My name is Frank Russo, registered architect for Bergman, located at 1524 Delancey in Center City.
Okay, and have you worked on the Drexel Line sign package that we're discussing tonight?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and do you have a copy of the exhibits, the exhibit package with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, the first exhibit is Exhibit A2, which is entitled Zoning Signage Exhibit, and that shows the entire site. Could you identify for the board the different locations of the proposed freestanding pylon, or otherwise known as pylon signs?
Okay, so starting from the left-hand side or the west, I'll work my way across the site towards the east. The first sign adjacent to the Wawa gas station is the Welcome to Upper Darby signage. It's a ground sign. The second sign on the plan that is primarily right adjacent to the Wawa building itself is the Wawa gas sign. And then working your way towards the right, you'll see a secondary ground sign at the first entrance, a main pylon sign at the next entrance, and then another secondary sign at the later entrance towards the east.
Okay, and are those signs you described, are they highlighted in yellow on Exhibit A2?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
I don't see it up there, though, so I'm not sure what's going on.
okay. And will all of these signs be located at least 10 feet from the right-of-ways?
That is correct.
Okay, and will they be surrounded by a 2 feet strip of landscaping in compliance with the ordinance?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and will the three freestanding signs for the Drexel Line Shopping Center, will they be located on different parcels within the shopping center?
Yeah, so there's multiple parcels on the site, so each parcel has a sign as indicated on the site plan.
Okay, and on the Wawa, does the Wawa sit on its own parcel?
Yes, it does, and obviously that site has two signs, the Welcome to Upper Darby sign that I mentioned, and then the Wawa sign.
Okay, and is that why we're seeking, we need at least been asked to seek relief from the zoning ordinance because there's a second freestanding sign, the Welcome to Upper Darby sign?
That is correct.
Okay. And does that sign advertise the Wawa or the shopping center or anything like that?
No, it is shown in our exhibits later on in the package, but it's basically a welcome sign for the township. It has the township motto on it. It's a small masonry wall that's illuminated at night.
Okay. And is that the basis of the request for relief as to that sign? Because it's essentially, it's on our property, but it's a sign, for the announcement, welcome to the township.
That is correct.
Okay. Looking at Exhibit A3, which has inset images of the, on the left side of Exhibit A3 for the Wawa signs. I think you identified where the proposed other freestanding signs are, but where specifically would the Wawa freestanding sign go?
Okay, so the Wawa freestanding sign that's on the upper left-hand corner of the exhibit is located adjacent to the building along the strip along the side. So it's right at the corner, basically in line with the Wawa store itself.
Okay, and as part of those inset diagrams, there are two wall signs that have the Wawa word logo as well as the Wawa goose logo, correct?
That's correct.
And those are compliant in terms of dimensions under the ordinance?
Yes, that's building signage that's at the front entry and the rear of the building.
Okay, and as I mentioned in opening, that the freestanding sign with the gasoline prices on it, that's also compliant at this point?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're here basically for the additional sign shown on Exhibit A3, which is the red spanner sign to the right of those diagrams.
Yes, so you can see based on the size, they basically are on the supports for the canopy. There's two signs, and if you pass by a Wawa in the past, you know the canopy, the size of that canopy. These are basically down below that line, framing the gas pump area.
Okay. So there are some additional pages on Exhibit A3, and I guess we don't really need to look at the second page or the third page, which we've already described. But the fourth page shows kind of a larger image of the Wawa spanner signs that we're talking about. And then the last page, does that show kind of what the canopy and the gas pumps would look like?
Yeah, so if you look at the last page, you see the swooping canopy line of over the gas pumps, and then those two red spanner signs between the supports of the gas pump.
Okay. And do you know, will those spanner signs be illuminated?
Yeah, so basically, let me just tell you about the spanners real quick. They're really used as directional signs for the site. If you think about some of the other gas canopies around town, they're highly illuminated, thick canopies. Wawa has a very different approach to this. It's a much thinner, dematerialized canopy. By bringing the signage down, it does really act as a directional piece on the site for the folks coming for gas.
So it essentially tells them this is where the gas is pumped from?
Yep, it defines the edges of that canopy in a much nicer way, I think, than some of the other gas stations that you may have around town.
Okay. And you mentioned that the canopy itself, is there any Wawa logo or any other advertising that's being sought on the roof structure?
No, not at all. That's a real thin dematerialized architectural piece that is pretty iconic in some regard.
Okay. And then just the prior page that shows the spanner signs, it says a total area of 7.84 square feet. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And so that's the square footage that's being proposed for each of the spanner signs.
Yes.
And essentially, under the ordinance, there's no provision that deals with these kind of signs. There are freestanding signs and wall signs and those kinds of things, but nothing that where there's a bucket that this would fall into.
Yeah, it's not a wall sign, it's not a freestanding sign, it's somewhere in between.
Okay, so that's why we're seeking relief for these signs. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the spanner signs?
Other than they are really a directional piece on the site, obviously it helps the motorists coming for fuel and sort of guides them around the site and defines that structure.
Okay, and they are not illuminated, is that right?
They're not illuminated, no.
Okay. Exhibit A4, which has the Drexeline Shopping Center freestanding signs on it. The first page has a couple different diagrams on it. Does that show the Welcome to Upper Darby, the World in One Place sign?
Yes, so on the upper right-hand corner of that exhibit, you see the masonry wall, basically with the illuminated letters, or not non-illuminated letters attached to the masonry face.
Okay. And the remaining images on the first page of Exhibit A4, they are the smaller freestanding signs that we were talking about for the
That's
shopping
correct.
center.
That's correct. These are the secondary signs that I mentioned at entrance number 2 and 4. And you can see from the design perspective, we're carrying that same masonry base that we're using at the upper Darby sign into these elements for continuity on this site and to really bring the signage into a cohesive mix with the architecture that's being constructed.
Okay. And looking at the next page of Exhibit A4, does that show the larger freestanding sign that would be at the main entrance with the traffic light?
That is correct. And that has the Shoprite logo and the digital screen that you had mentioned previously. So
Okay.
this is the main pylon sign for the site.
Okay, so the relief that we're asking with respect to the town center, that is the Shoprite sign that is larger than 8 square feet, as well as the digital screen. Is that right, which is also larger than 8 square feet?
That is correct.
Okay. And what is, we have Jeff Nurk here tonight, but just in your opinion, what is the reason for needing the larger Shoprite sign?
Well, obviously Shoprite's a major anchor tenant on the site. It's been there forever, pretty much. And I think the size of the store in the context of the rest of the site and the other tenants, it's the anchor. This is really a big tenant with a big building that's going to be there.
Okay. And the digital screen that's below it, that's the electronic message sign that we've asked
That
for
is
relief
correct. That is correct.
for? Okay. Is there any proposed animation of that sign?
No, my understanding is that, Shoprite will advertise for different specials or, employment opportunities. The messages will be timed like at a 5-second plus interval. So it's not a flashing sign. It's really just to get messages out there. It could advertise sales or what have you. So it is not a flashing sign or animation.
Okay. And the 5 seconds that you mentioned, that complies with the ordinance?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And there won't be any kind of movement or other, anything else? There's a number of things under the, there's a special provision for electronic message boards under the ordinance. Does it otherwise comply with those requirements except for the size?
That is correct.
Okay. Exhibit A5, do they show some of the existing older Drexel Line shopping center signs?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And are those all being removed?
Yes, they'll be demolished as part of the work.
Okay. In your opinion, will the proposed new signage be an improvement on existing conditions?
Yes, I mean, they're designed to tie into the design of the new center, better graphics, better proportions. So from a whole architectural standpoint, it's a much better fit. It's a much nicer signage for the site and the new center that's being constructed.
And does the fact that the shopping center is located at a corner property with multiple street frontages and multiple entrances make it unique in terms of its signage needs?
That is correct.
Okay, and in your opinion, would the variances requested be reasonable adjustments of the zoning ordinance, given the size of the property, the size of the buildings, and the number of tenants that need to be identified there?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
And did we attempt to create a sign package for the shopping center while minimizing the need for variances?
We sure did. We almost got there, too.
Okay. Is the proposed signage similar to other shopping centers and gas stations in the township and in the general vicinity?
Similar, but as I mentioned before, the Wawa signage is much different. And I think in Exhibit A5, you can see a Sunoco that has that thick banner with the branding, which obviously we're not proposing for this site. So it is a little, it's much nicer in that context, and the signage that we're proposing for the rest of the center ties into the architecture that's proposed and fits well within the context of the neighborhood.
And in your opinion, would the proposal alter the essential character of the neighborhood or the district in which it's located?
It will not. I think it will improve it along with the architecture that we're putting on the site.
Okay, I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I mean, the signs obviously look much more modern than the current sign, so I do think it is an improvement. I had one question, and maybe you can't even answer this in your Exhibit 5. You can actually see an existing Welcome to Upper Darby sign, which is off site of your property. I was just curious if you're aware of if that sign will be removed. I know it's not owned by your property, but it seems kind of
Will it be
interesting that you
yeah.
have two Welcome to Upper Darby signs right next to each other, basically.
I mean, my understanding is that part of the whole approval process, the sign was requested by the township on that corner as a primary focal point for the township. So again,
I
it's
mean, the new sign looks much better,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean,
I mean-
I don't have a problem with the new sign, I was just curious.
that existing sign could potentially be relocated somewhere else in the township. I think that would be a good way to proceed.
Sure. Anybody else have questions?
Just to clarify, so there's only two of these banner signs, there's not one at each?
That's correct, just on the end caps of that support the canopy.
Bob?
Yeah, do you have to have, or are you going to put up signs for each pump? So you know which pump you're getting the gas from when you're walking inside?
So can you explain that again? I'm not sure I understand what.
Person coming up to get gas, he's moved up to the pump, and then he has to go inside to tell them for payment?
Oh, as far as like payment, you mean? Well, typically, well, I know in Jersey there's attendance, but if you have a credit card, you can pay at the pump, or if you have the Wawa app, you can pay at the pump. So there's multiple ways to pay for fuel.
Mr. Quinn, are you asking as to whether the pumps will be identified with number signs?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think if you look, well, they have, yeah. So if you look, I don't know if we could see it in the exhibits that I'm looking at here. Let me zoom in. Yeah, it's really too small to see.
Yes.
Yeah, you really got to zoom in there to see it. But each pump would have a number, if that's what the question is. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
I did have a question. How many pumps are there? Because when I'm looking at the first spanner, I see the pump to the right, but then the pump that's to the left looks like it's turned to different direction.
Well, you can see the pumps in between, you see where their spanner is in the flat elevation? So there's a pump to the left of it and a pump to the right of it. I think the perspective that are you looking at the perspective or the flat elevation? Because it's,
The perspective, so the
Yeah.
lower, on the lower left.
yeah, what you're seeing is the,
Picture, I'm looking underneath.
yeah, I think you're seeing the masonry piers that are next to it. So if you look at the flat elevation right above that,
Right.
you'll see a pump and then the spanner and then another pump to the right of it.
Okay, so it just looks like it's side.
Yeah, I think just the angle of that perspective makes it look like there's more.
And how many pumps are there?
So there's 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4. Actually, they're double-sided though, so,
Right.
yeah. So actually 12 total with the third. If you look at the flat elevation, you'll see there's, 2 for each vertical post supporting the canopy. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Mr. Okay, one question. Mr. Russo, the spanner signs themselves, they serve essentially the same purpose as, say, the Sunoco sign on the canopy in this, or the Speedway sign on the
Yeah,
canopy of that.
exactly.
So it's really just an I mean, it's branding, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, obviously that canopy that sort of soars up in the air is very diminutive and sort of dematerialized. So bringing the spanner down lower makes that canopy that would normally be, 18 to 24 inches thick, a much thinner profile.
Understood.
And it also helps, like I said before, about direction on the site for motorists as they come into the site. It helps direct them to the pumps.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Nope, I think that's it. If you have any
Good?
other
Okay.
witnesses.
Okay. My next witness would be Kristen Ritz.
Hello. Kristen, Kristen, Ritz, Ritz. TZ.
Ms. Ritz, can you explain where you're employed?
I'm employed with Wawa Incorporated.
Okay. And are you familiar with this Wawa sign package that we've been discussing tonight?
Yes, I am.
And are you also familiar with other Wawa sign packages in the area?
Yes, I am.
Okay, does that include the Wawa at Baltimore Pike and Oak Avenue in Upper Darby Township?
Yes, it does.
And is that also located in the C2 zoning district?
It is.
And was the sign package on that property identical to this one?
Yes.
Okay, so it had the same pylon signs, same wall signs, and same spanner signs?
Yes, sir.
And was there any zoning relief required on those signs, particularly with respect to the spanner signs?
No.
Okay. And does Wawa have similar spanner signs on other fuel sites in Upper Darby?
Yes.
Such as I got gas there tonight, but at the Bishop and Baltimore location?
Yes, sir.
And Exhibit A3, which has the Wawa signs. We were discussing the spanner sign with Mr. Russo, and he already addressed it somewhat, but would you agree that the proposed signage for the canopy and the overall structure for the gas canopy are less significant than other gas stations in the area?
Yeah, I believe that they are comparatively modest when looking at other gas signage.
Okay, and what's the purpose of the spanner signs?
Well, like Mr. Russo said, it kind of defines the fueling area. Being flanked on either side lets you know that this is the outside of the canopy, for instance, if you're a truck or something. But and more so, it's for the branding. There are a lot of other gas stations or fueling stations and convenience stores that are not the same brand. We want people to know that our fueling operations are the same as our convenience store.
Okay, so if these were just without the spanner signs, someone might assume that Wawa doesn't have its own gas.
Yes.
Okay. And I think there was a question from the board about the number of spanner signs. Would you mind clarifying, is it only the two that you see on the last page that has the rendering of the gasoline structure?
Yeah, it's only on the exterior pumps. Just again, so you know that you are now entering the Wawa fueling area from either side. It's not on every pump, it's just the exterior.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, board. No. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my final witness will be Jeff Nurk.
JEFFREYNURK.
All right, good evening, Mr. Nurk.
Good evening.
Can you explain your profession And just where you're employed?
I'm with the management team for the Shoprite. Metro Philly Management is the umbrella company, but I work in management for Shoprite. Is that better? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Management company, Metro Philly Management, that oversees the Shoprite.
And how long has the Shoprite been at Drexel Shopping Center, if you know?
As long as I can remember, I think 40-some years, maybe longer.
Okay, and I won't belabor the board with going back through the exhibits that describe the signage, but can you just tell me in your own words, what's the purpose of the larger ShopRite sign and then the message board?
Just the overall appearance of the center. I think building this type of store causes, the need for a larger sign, and the illuminated sign gives us our display about ads, weekly ads. It's changing weekly, so we like to support that and let the township know that we're hiring, and seasonal campaigns.
Is that kind of thing a critical component of the business?
Yes, very critical.
Would ShopRite, would it be appropriate, in your opinion, to have a smaller sign such as the 8 square feet shingle style signs that are on the other signage?
Absolutely not.
I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thanks.
You mentioned seasonal signage for the message board?
Yes.
Like,
Like promotions about holidays and things like that. Memorial Day is coming up. We'll promote our Memorial Day sales.
okay. So you won't have eggs for $2.99 or something like that. You're talking more like,
We will have that as well, but it's more about what's coming up, letting everybody know what's in stock and what's for sale that week.
So it really is, it's eggs for $2.99, hopefully someday again. Ground
Age
beef
myself.
for 99 cents a pound.
Yes,
That's what's going to be on this digital sign.
yes.
And it would be more the specials for the week or something like.
Correct, yeah. Similar to what you see in your online ad or your newspaper ad that you would see.
Okay, thank you.
does the board have any other questions?
But that's not distracting to anyone. Like you see eggs for $2.99 and right now they're probably about $5.69.
No,
You
it's,
know, and if it's flashing, you're like, did I really see that?
no, it stays up for a long time. We're not running 30 ads on it. It's going to be 1 or 2 things that alternate back and forth.
I kind of thought so, but okay.
Yeah. All good? Thank you.
Is there any other, excuse me, I guess are you
Yes,
done,
I'm
or do you
done.
have any closing statements, or?
Just that we think it's a reasonable sign package. It's obviously a very critical center to the township. It's a keystone anchor property to the township, and we're not asking for a lot of relief, of course, and essentially it's the ShopRite sign, in my opinion, which is typical. You see this at a lot of other centers. They have a bigger sign for the anchor, and they also have a message board, and this one is not distracting.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the audience? Yeah, we're gonna go into an executive session just to hash out some of the questions.
whole building together. We still apply for that exception. Exception variance, but kind of connected. I mean,
Okay.
I brought the picture.
Yeah, that's what, looks good too. Coming together nicely.
I have the other one as well.
Yeah. Go in and explain to the board, but, yeah, just wait for the call. Apparently this is on camera. Apparently. Yeah, and she looks like she did. What's that? No, Karen Coppard, yeah, Karen Coppard. Darby, I know. We were doing that for, long match. I guess it was a little bit, six. The whole paper, big dense, oh my God.
She's a huge asset, but she's
That's what, yeah, so John sent out that email Sunday morning. When I spoke with Megan and Mike, was what you were talking. John's asking for a thing. Basically, we spell that, basically what they spell out, which I think is what we're looking for, but they were very much. Well, it's not about design, it's really about the integrity of the program and what the top rate put in, be able to say, define, or they need to be below the angle of influence, which are those things for stepping up.
Yeah, I was filling for Mike today. He had been my variance, so no problem. I only live in Havertown, so it was very easy. She's over here in like 5 minutes or so. Yeah.
Again, and now that we know that you're right by there.
I only do.
Get this, matters like this is.
So you don't see me in my local friends. Comparatively, I'm not sure how they.
One thing that, did you look at the video? There's a section with the bubbles of long, which theoretically is like, unremovable, where Well, that's, yeah, so that's one of the things is basically represent stone is, do a test pit just so we could ascertain if that wall, you know, like a 3 foot thick stone wall. But yeah, I mean, so there may be an area where there has to be some additional reinforcement. Again, it's all about location, is the context of buildings, traffic, whatever. So it is, no, I mean, I feel much better that, the guys in the yeah. It's like, I mean, I can do it, but it's not really my area of expertise.
Universal chargers.
That's the one that's not working at really Chevy Volvo. But I think we'll get there, and it's just a matter of, I did ask him how long, you know, he needs to do it. First, we need to go and do more, do one
Other charging stations, we just
now,
haven't
listen,
included them.
got the CCTV. There's
But
certain
one
areas that
don't
just
want
sort of
to
like
spend an hour while their car charging in a Wawa parking lot, you know? If somewhere here in the day, usually. Well, the Tesla ones. Charging. Yeah, so there's some nuances.
That also filled the room. Very popular. That's okay.
All right, so we're going to open the meeting back up again. I guess as a point of clarification, we had an additional question regarding the digital sign. I think the testimony was that it would mainly be for the Shoprite. I guess solely for the Shoprite advertising various promotions that they're having. I'm just curious if that sign would be open for any of the other tenants in the shopping center.
I'm sorry, yeah. My understanding was it was reserved for ShopRite, because I was unsure about that initially myself.
Okay. Okay. since we kind of opened the record back up, I'll just open it up to public comment again, if there's any other public comment for that item. Okay, so let me pull this up. All right, I think we're going to go by this one item at a time, since there's various different variances. So for the first variance, which is from section 550-37.G3B for the Welcome to Upper Darby sign, I would make a motion to approve that variance. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. For the second variance, we have from section 550-37G3C to permit the 24 square foot cabinet sign for the anchor tenant Shoprite, where the minimum or the maximum is 8 square feet. I would make a motion to approve that variance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The third is for the interpretation of the 14-foot digital cabinet sign does not qualify as a sign identifying an individual establishment under section 550-37G3C. I would make a motion that be denied since it, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Then we don't have to vote on the size of it, right? Or
You'll need to vote on the variance to, since you made an interpretation that it qualifies as a sign identifying an individual establishment, you'll have to vote on the variance to allow that sign and at that size. So you can make a motion to lump those two into one, or you could do them separately.
Okay. I will make a motion to deny that application to permit that digital sign. Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. So that variance is denied.
And that would make the 14 square feet moot.
Right.
Yes.
A variance from section 550-37C4.
That was.
Oh, that one was struck. We didn't need that one, so that's already, okay. So then we have another determination that the Wawa gasoline spanner sign are permitted under section 550-37. I will make a motion to approve that determination. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I believe the final thing is that any other variances were deemed necessary for the property as depicted in the plan. I would make a motion to deny that. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yes, I don't know if I have to be sworn in.
Well, is it a question?
It is a question.
Okay. You can just ask the question.
What is the basis for, I mean, I understand we're in a very competitive market for supermarkets, and it's imperative that they have certain things that maintain their competitiveness in the market. And I was just trying to understand what was the basis for denying the variance request. My name is Daniel Chabel. I'm the Vice President of Development for MCB 8 Drexel Line Plaza.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was sort of the questions that we had followed up with. That sign, the interpretation is that the sign does not qualify for an individual establishment. So that sign is specifically being used for the Rite Aid, or excuse me, the Shoprite, sorry. So that's where we
And that's,
denied the
I was actually wondering that because because of that fact, we're not proposing it for any other tenants. That we would need relief for essentially the size of the sign. The initial request for relief was an interpretation that the sign does not qualify as a sign identifying an individual establishment. That was frankly early on when we were not sure, I was not sure, the applicant, on behalf of the applicant, whether it was just for the whole center or one particular user, which is Shoprite. So we essentially wouldn't need that relief, or we would withdraw it. And so we would just be asking for the variance on the size of the digital canopy sign. Because there is a digital canopy sign permitted under the ordinance. It's just that it has to be at or less than 8 square feet, which is the otherwise signage permitted. And so we're asking essentially to go from 8 to 14 square feet. And that would be the variance.
I think based on the testimony,
Yeah, I was going to say, based on the testimony, that sign is a second sign applicable to only the ShopRite, which is where we feel that the second sign is not allowed.
Okay. I understand
Right?
that.
Is that correct, Greg? Yeah.
that
Yes, that question.
That's why we came back and asked the question.
Can I ask another question? If you don't mind.
I don't want to get into like a debate back and forth here because
I'm trying to, maybe there's another path. So what if the sign was for the entire center?
so
I mean, we can open it, I mean, if we, well, I'm just,
Look,
but we didn't think
here-
there was, I mean, it didn't really seem, we were just asking for a simple variance on size. However, if you're saying that we need to require it for the whole center, then why don't we consider that?
I think that at this point, the board has rendered its decision. And if there's a different approach to this, then you can approach the zoning office and we can go from there.
We're all here now. I understand that the record has been closed, but I'd just like to see if there was another way that we could find a resolution to this without us all having to come back. That's all I'm saying.
Do you want to discuss this?
Yeah, we'll go back into executive
I
session.
greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate the indulgence.
Chair does not have working wheels. Okay, after a meeting in executive session, the board will entertain the applicant's request to reopen the record on application 4-7 of 22, and would ask that you provide some testimony for the record as to the use of the digital cabinet size and justification for the proposed size, if there's additional testimony you want to put on related to that.
Sure. I know we've already had Mr. Nurks sworn in. I'd like to bring him up here, and then also have Dan Shabel, the Vice President of MCB Real Estate, sworn in.
No objection from the board.
Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And can you spell your last name for me?
S as in Sam, H-A, B as in boy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry.
Mr. Shabel, for the microphone, you just made some statements about the willingness of the shopping center to share the proposed message board sign. Is that something that the applicant is willing to do?
That is correct.
Okay, and what is the reason that this is a critical part of the shopping center?
The supermarket is in a highly competitive market, and it is imperative that they be able to show parts of, a number of their specials, et cetera, as in terms of working through the zoning regulations, et cetera, if it is required, although that wasn't initially as we had requested, but if it's required that it be for the rest of the center, the MCBH Drexel line would be more than willing to have other tenants on the electronic board and, make it, and then also advertising the center as well.
And is this, are these type of message boards commonplace with a lot of similar shopping centers in the vicinity?
They are.
And especially with respect to the newer ones that are coming out?
Correct.
Okay. Would there be, well, Mr. Nurk already testified, there would be no flashing lights or anything that's distracting?
That is correct.
And is the, can you just tell me about the shopping center and how many tenants it's going to have?
We have, 14,000 feet of retail space that is adjacent to the supermarket. We have another 6,400 square feet that is on a pad. We do not know the identity of the tenants. We don't know if it'll be, 2 tenants or it'll be 6 tenants or 8 tenants. Unfortunately, it just takes some time to lease up. But it is, so, and we are working on some other things where there may be some additional tenants. I don't want to really get too much into it, but so I think it would be a kind of, it would be a modernization of the center to have that electronic board and just to be able to advertise not only the supermarket, but everything else that's going on in the center.
And obviously, there's been relief granted tonight for the Shoprite in terms of the overall square footage of the sign. So are you willing to put as a condition of approval, if the electronic message board is allowed at 14 square feet, that it be used for many tenants?
Correct. Yes, I am.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness.
Okay. Any board comments? Any other public comments? Okay. So I guess based on the additional testimony. What's that?
Well, is that all you have, Mr. McHugh?
I was just asking that question, if there was anything else that we wanted to emphasize, but I think Dan has covered it.
Anything in the size, or you? Okay, well, Madam Chair, if the board is inclined to amend its decision of 10 minutes ago, I would recommend that you first take a motion on the interpretation issue
Okay.
related to the, whether the cabinet qualifies as a sign identifying an individual establishment, and then a variance on the size.
Okay. So based on the additional testimony, it does appear that that sign will be used for multiple tenants. So I would make a motion to approve approve the interpretation that the sign is not used as a sign identifying an individual establishment.
And the size is okay.
Well, I was going to make a separate one after that, yeah.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. And then the second part of that will be a motion to approve the size of 14 square feet for that digital sign. All those in favor? Aye. Motions pass.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Oh, were there any conditions attached to that, or?
I should say, yeah, the condition as discussed with the testimony, sorry, this is
We're
crazy
all out
night.
of order
Yeah, we're
tonight.
all out of order. There would be a condition, should I remake the motion or?
You can just state the condition and then the board can consent to the,
Okay, so I will make the condition that the sign is available for other tenants to display advertisements.
Do I second it? Or
yeah.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all good? Bridget, you good?
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's
We will
move on.
get our stuff together. And
Yeah. Okay, so our next application is 4-8 of 22, application of AB 3 LLC for a variance from section 550-20 to allow front yard setback, 69th Street, where 36, where 50 is required, and a front,
Can I make a suggestion? Do you just want to read the sections that the requests are for to
Sure.
save yourself some?
Yes, so we will have a variance from section 550-20, a variance from section 550-33D-20A, a variance from section 550-34B, a variance from section 550-22F6C, a variance from 550-22F1A, a variance from 550-22F1C, a variance from 550-22F5B, and a variance from 550-37G3B,
Thank you.
An interpretation.
and then an interpretation that the vinyl graphic signage located on the proposed 2 OCU structure does not require relief. And then also a variance from section, or in the alternative, a variance from section 550-37E2A. Okay, this property is situated at 490 South 90, excuse me, situated at 490 South 69th Street in Upper Darby, PA. It's a C2 traditional general commercial district, and it's in the 6th council district.
We save you some energy
Thank
there on
you.
that
I
paragraph.
could use it tonight.
Before we begin, the board will enter its exhibits. ZHB1 is the application. ZHB2 is the addendum to petition. ZHB3 is the amendment to petition. ZHB4 is the letter of authorization. ZHB5 is the deed. ZHB6 are the tax statements. ZHB 7 is the lease agreement. ZHB 8 is the site plan prepared by Bowler Engineering. ZHB 9 are the sign plans prepared by Allen Industries. ZHB 10 is the letter to Jay Chast from C. Miller. ZHB 11 are the notice photos, and ZHB 12 is the proof of publication. I do not believe I see anyone in the audience, so no party status will be requested or granted for this application.
Can I just start by asking something? Does this replace all the stuff that we got before?
It's,
So I don't have to keep flipping through
yeah,
pages.
it's largely exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, may it please the board. My name is Mark D'Amico. I'm representing the applicant, AB3 LLC. As your solicitor said, there's several exhibits that we put in our package and marked as our applicant's exhibits. So A1 is a redacted copy of the lease. Exhibit A2 is a copy of the deed. Exhibit A3 is a copy of a letter authorizing the applicant to appear for the relief for the proposed development, and Exhibit A4 is an affidavit of the posting of the property. The property is approximately 0.967 acres. It's a triangular-shaped property fronting on both 69th Street and Patterson Avenue, located in the C2 district. You are probably familiar with it. It used to be the Pearl Vision Center. It's been vacant for several years, and it's not in a good condition. I think it's understatement. Our client is proposing to demolish the existing structure and essentially redevelop the entire property with a 3,484 square foot Burger King restaurant with a drive-through facility, parking, signage, landscaping, and related improvements. Since the submission of our original application, we did update it just for the sign. We made a slight change in the sign relief that we were asking for, so we re-advertised and reposted the property. The slight change was that we had a ground sign on Patterson Avenue, which was withdrawn, and we added a small, essentially like a spanner sign above the door, which is not an additional sign. That part does not require relief, but it adds to the existing relief that we were already asking for, which is to have a sign area greater than what would be allowed under your ordinance. So I have one witness, Matt Chartrand, who's a professional engineer. And I will just mention for the record that prior to making our application to the zoning hearing board, representatives of the developer did meet via Zoom with representatives of the township staff to share the sketch plan and the redevelopment proposal. And I think it's fair to say that we were met with the attitude that this would be a welcome addition and a welcome improvement to Upper Darby Township. Of course, subject to getting any relief from the board that's necessary in order to proceed with land development. So with that as background, I would propose to call Matt Chartrand and have him sworn in, and I guess I'll sit over here at this point.
Can you raise your hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Chartrand, would you give your full name and your business address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Matt Chartrand, Chartrand. I work for Bowler Engineering, 74 West Broad Street, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And you're a professional engineer?
I am.
All
I've
right.
been licensed in the state of Pennsylvania since April of 2005.
Okay. And in the exhibit package that I handed up to the board behind tab 5, is that a copy of your resume or CV?
Yes, it is.
All right. And would you give the board a little background with your experience in commercial site design and land development?
Sure. I started with Bowler Engineering in June of 1999. So coming up literally in a couple weeks on 23 years of doing primarily commercial and retail site design, but land development across multiple uses of residential, industrial, but primarily I'll say that my work has been in commercial retail And again, I've been licensed as an engineer in the state since 2005.
Okay. And have you been recognized as an expert before zoning hearing boards and other municipal bodies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I have.
All right. At this time, I would ask that the witness be accepted as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
I have no issue with his qualification if the board has no objection.
I have no objection.
Qualified.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Shertran, did your firm prepare the plan that was submitted with the application, site plan?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and that's what we've marked as Exhibit A6. Is that the site plan that's showing up on the board?
Yeah,
Or-
it
or up on the
appears to
computer
be.
screen?
Some of the title block and such is cut off, but essentially that is the site plan that we submitted with our application.
Okay. Would you describe the existing conditions of the property and the surrounding neighborhood?
Sure. It's an existing one-story commercial/office building, I think was mentioned, that was previously used as a Pearl Vision. It's been closed down for some time. It's immediately adjacent to our, we'll call it west, on the plan to the south is the existing Wawa that's there. There's also a Popeyes restaurant and a furniture store across 69th Street and a shopping center. And then along the rear of our site, Patterson Avenue, we don't have much of a rear because of how much our site narrows down, but there are residents to the rear on Patterson. As you mentioned, it's a vacant site. It's very much run down and probably not the most attractive location in the township as of right now.
Okay, thank you. And would you describe the proposed improvements?
Sure. Again, as you mentioned, the site area itself is about 0.98 acres, 42,515 square feet overall. We're proposing a 3,500 roughly square foot Burger King restaurant with a drive-through, 2 order points associated with that drive-through, which again, we'll get into, but that is simply just to keep the flow of traffic moving. You've probably seen it at multiple type restaurants like this, fast food type establishments that have a second order point comes back together to one single pickup point, but it's just a matter of trying to move vehicles through in a more efficient manner. We've got, a corner lot here. As was mentioned, it's very much irregularly shaped. We've tried a bunch of different scenarios to see how we could lay this out to come up with the best type of layout that we thought that we could. And this is ultimately where we landed. We do think that we're making some significant improvements there to traffic management. We've got one driveway on 69th Street, whereas right now there are 2. We're looking to close the one that's closest to the intersection, make that a safer situation there. The driveways that we have shown on Patterson Avenue, one is for an exiting movement, one is for an entering movement. And the reason that they're split like that is to, again, facilitate the type of flow of traffic here. We've got a counterclockwise one-way motion going around this building, which again is typical of any type of fast food restaurant where you have a drive-through and pickup, wanting to keep the vehicles moving in one circular motion and ease that flow of traffic. Additionally, we are looking to raise the building from what it is right now. We know that this area is particularly flood prone, and there is a floodplain that actually runs through a portion of our site. So we're raising that building elevation in order to try to get that building out of that floodplain area. And another significant, we believe, improvement to this would be the fact that we are actually adding landscape in terms of overall area on the site. So we've got 82.5% roughly existing impervious cover on the site today. We're proposing to reduce that to 64% proposed. So, and 70% is required. So for an application like this, to be able to have that reduction and bring that into compliance from an ordinance standpoint, we think is a significant improvement. The landscaping will be detailed on our land development submission, which we anticipate making hopefully immediately after this hearing this evening.
Okay, thank you. And at the direction of the applicant, were plans prepared depicting the proposed signage to be located at the property?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what's been included in our exhibit package is Exhibit A7, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And do those renderings fairly and accurately represent the signage proposed at the property.
Yes, and again, it was mentioned previously, but I just want to mention here that those were prepared by Allen Industries for the applicant. They were not prepared by our office, but we did review them as part of this application.
Okay. And with respect to each type and referencing the sign plans, Exhibit A7, would you briefly describe the signs?
Sure. So there are a total of 4 signs on the building that are being proposed. 3 were determined to be quote-unquote wall signs. 1 was determined to be a canopy sign. Those signs are located, again, directionally to try to be visible for traffic. I don't know if you have a copy of that, or it's in the packet, so we can go to the building elevations are kind of the first couple pages after what's shown as a site plan under A7. So if you go to the next couple pages there, you can see the building signage. And I apologize because it says, this is labeled 3 of 11, if you can see that down along the bottom portion where the title block is. But the top portion of that is the building facade that is actually facing to we'll call it west, towards the Wawa. Okay, that is a main door that's facing our parking, that we have the angled parking along that side of the building. So we have one Burger King logo sign there, and that would be determined to be a wall sign. And then the canopy sign, which is just above that, you can see the lettering. It says Flame Grilling since 1954. So those are the 2 signs on that side of the building. The facade that is just below that, the narrow facade, is what is facing directly out towards 69th Street. Again, with one building sign on that side, the same Burger King logo sign. And then on the next page, you see the other 2 elevations. The top elevation is the one facing out towards Patterson Avenue, with, again, one building sign on that location for the Burger King logo. And then the one down below, that short side, that is the, call it, rear of the building that's facing out towards where so the top one there is facing towards the Wawa, the bottom one facing towards 69th Street. And then on the next page, that's facing out, the top one is facing towards Patterson Avenue, and the bottom one is facing towards the rear residential portion of our site, where the drive-through menu boards will be.
Okay. And so let's, I'm going to ask you to review and comment on the relief that the applicant is seeking one at a time here. So the first is Section 550-20 for a front yard setback variance from 69th Street. Would you, using Exhibit A6, explain the need for that relief?
Sure. So that, again, would be back to the site plan that we were referencing previously. The front yard setback requirement in this district is 50 feet. Along the 69th Street, we are proposing 36 feet. Currently, the building is at 63.8 feet. So currently, the building is in compliance, the existing building is in compliance in the particular location. For this development, this type of development, like I said, narrowing back on the rear of the lot, in order for us to be able to facilitate the type of movements that we need for vehicles, pedestrians, people coming to the site, customers, trucks, any traffic coming in and out, we really have to have the layout be the way that it is here. And that layout is what drives, and ultimately here, where we can place the building. So that is the reason for the need for a variance as it relates to 69th Street. I will say that we have largely eliminated parking between the building and out to 69th Street that does exist there today. There is parking right up to the edge of the Wawa lot that we will be eliminating along that particular portion. Additionally, as that same section, but as it relates to Patterson Avenue, 50-foot requirement, we're proposing 37.7 feet, whereas it's 38.8 existing today. So a net change of about 1.1 feet from where the existing building is to where our proposed is. Again, we tried to look at a bunch of different scenarios here by which we could find a way to make that situation work. But you can actually see on the plan there, kind of a dashed line. And do you mind if I point? Actually, I'll see if my pointer actually works on the TV. It does not, but it lines up here. So it comes up to that point and then runs back on an angle following Patterson Avenue. That is the building setback. So large portions of our building are within the setback, as much of that building as we possibly could get within the setback. But because of the fact that we have this triangularly shaped lot that runs on an angle, it kind of clips that back southeast corner of the building is where we have our setback issue there. And I'm sorry, I'll keep moving through here. The parking setback as it relates to 550-33D20A, and that's a parking setback from the adjacent Wawa. 10 feet is required. Again, today, there's 0 feet existing. Tough to tell what's actually striped out there, but we looked at aerial exhibits, and you can see on the aerial that people are parked directly to that side at the Wawa. So we are also proposing 0 feet, but much further back into our site. You can see now where, and again, if you don't mind, I'm just going to point here for a second. The existing parking is here along this portion. That's where the Wawa is. We're moving that parking significantly further into the site in order to, again, help facilitate the type of the traffic movements and elevating the site significantly from where it is today in order for us to try to get around the flood hazard there. Under 550-34B for a loading space, loading here is going to be done at off-peak times and largely after hours. So our anticipation, and we have looked at truck movements here, that they would come in off of 69th Street through that driveway, straight along to the back, roughly where the trash enclosure is. There's substantial area there where that trailer can park without affecting the overall flow. But we can't, in this case, designate a loading space of 14 feet by 50 feet. That area does exist on the site. If you look kind of right in front of the trash enclosure, if they were to park almost towards the exit on Patterson Avenue, that there is sufficient area there for the vehicle to be able to park and do their unloading, but we just can't stripe it and designate it as a quote-unquote loading space. But again, this will occur at times off-peak. They don't want it to affect their operation either, just as much as when you show up to come get a Whopper, you don't want a truck parked across there. They can manipulate the schedule as such to make sure that it doesn't have an impact to their prime times.
So a little out of order, but just to clarify that, so there's that 26.8 foot dimension between the ordering aisle and that curb that lines up with the trash, the enclosure. That's the area that the truck would park in?
Yeah, that's our anticipation, that they would park back in that area outside of the boundary of where and not impact the drive-through at all. So that's correct in that area. And the reason, just to explain a little further, why that exit movement is as wide as it is, that driveway where the exit is wider than the entrance, is simply so that that truck can get out of there free and clear.
Follow-up question to that, if the truck is parked back there, would it affect the exit?
No, we again measured off. So if you took the 26.8 feet, and if we were required a 14-foot wide loading space, you'd be down to 12.8, which is sufficient under the ordinance for one-way traffic to get around that. So if that truck was to be pulled over there, basically, in front of the trash enclosure and where the one parking space is adjacent to the trash enclosure, which We haven't designated as such, but to be honest, it's likely going to be for a manager or some sort of, employee parking. It's not going to be a prime spot for anyone that's coming to the store from a customer standpoint. So if they park there, then yes, we believe that there's sufficient room for vehicular movement around them.
Sorry to,
I'm sorry. So the truck's going to be exiting on the Patterson Avenue?
Yes. I mean, again, it's simply a matter of, if you look at the narrowness of this site and the type of movements that would be necessary for a truck to get around the other side of the building, make a left, and then a hard right back out onto 69th Street. But the reality is, they're going to head back out to the intersection and get back onto 69 to get where they're going. But this is just the manner in which we need to be able to get them back out. PennDOT, we did have discussion, our traffic engineer had some discussion with PennDOT relative to the driveways. And as I mentioned, there is existing today, there's a driveway that's closer to the intersection of 69th Street and Patterson, which PennDOT would like us to close, and we are proposing to do so with our plan. So I'm sorry, there was another question.
So the entrance for the truck for unloading is the same entrance as the arrows, whereas you said one's narrower and the exit is wider? The truck will come in that same entrance? Or will
Can I
come
go
in-
up there and point again, because my pointer doesn't work on the television, so I'm
Yes,
gonna
that would be
I'm gonna
helpful.
trace. The truck would enter off of 69th Street, this is 69th here. They would enter here, come around the back, stage here, do their loading through the back door, and exit directly out here. So they would not need to, in that situation, come all the way back around and try to do this circuitous movement with the tractor.
Okay, I didn't, okay.
I guess, well,
I
it
see now.
seems an odd space to do loading. I mean, you're going to have to cut through the drive aisles for the,
Yeah, again, it will be at off hours or potentially even after hours. Right
Okay.
now, their proposed schedule would be 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. is the hours of operation. They do want to, once they open, I guess, see how things are going and potentially extend if business is doing great. They'd love to have more hours, but right now, that's the anticipation. So whether that truck comes a little before, a little after, or just, beyond the peak times, that they're not going to want to block the drive-through operation. But they could, in that situation, because they have a second menu board, they could put a cone out there at the second order point and be able to have some more space. So you still have the free flow of movement, but the second menu board isn't necessitated by code, it's necessitated by just the efficiency of operation. So we believe that there's enough room back there for them to do what they need to do.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Now, I'm just thinking in terms of that truck coming out on Patterson Avenue, because there's a 69th Street playground is right across 69th Street, catty corner.
Mm.
So, I'm just wondering about kids trying to get to the playground, and trucks trying to get out of the parking. But if it's going to be after hours, that wouldn't be a problem.
Sure. Yeah, and operationally, this happens all the time, right? So any fast food restaurant, any retail establishment, they have trucks coming in and out, making their deliveries. You may or may not see them. In fact, the hope is that you don't. And that's the idea behind this here, is to make it, as unobtrusive as possible to the operation and to everyone involved. So we don't anticipate that there's going to be any sort of a safety concern as it relates to, traffic coming in and out. As it relates specifically to the zoning ordinance, the only relief that we're asking for is to not designate a 14 by 50 foot loading area here, because the only way for us to do that is to wipe out significant amounts of parking, and it basically makes the site unusable and untenable for this tenant.
So my question was going to be, where the, what is the, I guess the space or area between, it looks like there's a line on this handout you gave us for the outer aisle. There's like a line going around, and then you have the space where the one is for the truck parking. What's the dimension? I guess that line is a barrier for the person driving on the outer.
Yeah, and it's not a physical barrier. There's just a painted striped line on
So,
there.
but what's the dimension? Like, what's, I guess, the space, the depth from a car being parked there, placing an order, and a truck being backed up in there, in that spot?
Only because
Like
my,
there where you said it might be an employee parking or manager parking.
so between that outside edge of where that painted line is to the curb was, that was what we were just talking about before. It's like 26.8 feet from the edge of the stripe, the painted white line, to that curb line adjacent to that one angled parking space. Yeah, you can,
Matt,
Right.
go up there, show her.
Mr. Chartrand, there's a 10-foot aisle for the ordering public, right?
Correct.
And then there's an additional 26.8 feet from where that aisle is to the curb.
Okay,
That would
so
have
that's
the
the
loading
26
area.
you asked about.
Yeah.
Okay. Right,
This is
they're
the
coming
line
up.
for the drive-through, which is 10 feet wide. So,
Got it.
you know, as wide as a typical parking space is, actually, most parking spaces now are more like 9 by 18. But around that, because, you know, this is very slow moving, you're not coming in here at any rate of speed. So it's 10 feet all the way around, 10 feet here, and then you
Okay.
have 26.
Okay, so it's 10, okay.
And probably the trash removal company would go out that side too, right?
Correct. So again, the trash truck would come straight in from 69th Street. They would have a straight shot right at the trash enclosure there to be able to do their lift, make the turn and get back out. So locationally, that's why the trash enclosure is there as well. And that's part of the, actually, that's a great segue to
Right.
our next section of relief, which was the setback of the refuse area itself.
They would have to, the trash would have to back up.
I think, Mr. Chartrand, you're one of those trash trucks that picks up the dumpsters on forks and
From the
flips
front.
it over the
Correct.
cab.
Yeah, most of them for commercial establishments are that way. They're not rear pickup. Yeah, that's exactly right. Comes in, slides the forks right into the dumpster, dumps it, puts it down, and gets out. Yep.
Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. D'Amico.
No.
The list is long enough that I think
No worries. So yeah,
if
it's
you
a
don't
good,
mind us peppering you with questions as we go, it might
good
make
way
it
to,
easier.
good way to break it up.
I
All
don't-
right, Matt,
I
yeah,
don't
you were
mind that.
talking about the loading zone. So you want to
The
mention the
loading
needs?
zone, we talked about the setback of the refuse area, which is the trash enclosure. Again, 50 feet, I guess technically required as it being a structure. We are proposing 29 feet as it relates to the property line at Patterson Avenue.
But as to the rear property line, it's located a long way from the residential neighbors at the rear. Is that right, Matt?
Correct.
Okay.
And I can't see that dimension there, but that is in compliance. In terms of the building setback, again, you can see.
Looks like 82 feet, somewhere around there.
Apologize for keep having to run back and forth, but
No
this dashed line is your building setback line here. So you can see that the setback line actually comes further back towards our rear property line. So we're in compliance relative to the trash enclosure to the residents behind. It's here, that location where the 29 feet.
Okay.
All right,
What's
so from 550-22F1A, as it relates to drive-through facilities, and again, this may or may not be necessary, I guess, depending upon the reading of the code, but we, in an abundance of caution, included this section in here because it states about drive-through facilities for 5 automobiles. So the only difference is where you measure from. If we measure from where the pickup point is, where you ultimately pick up your food, we have enough space in there for about 10 vehicles. From the point where you pick up the food, all the way back around to the other side of the site where that striping starts. If you measure from each individual order point, You know, the one that's nearest the building, we think we're right around 4 or 5 cars. And then where it splits, you're probably only getting a car or two to that point. But overall, in the drive-through, we have space for much more than 5 vehicles.
Are you saying from the ordering points with the double lane that there is room for 6 vehicles from the 2 ordering points back to the beginning of the striping?
There's room for at least 5, potentially 6 from the points of order. And then again, another likely about 5 vehicles as you get to the point where you pick up. So
Can I ask you, so where is pickup after I come through the 2 lanes and then it merges into the one?
entering here,
Right?
you're ordering
Ordering there.
either here or here
Mm-hmm.
at these 2 locations. This would be a pay window, which sometimes is
The first
open,
window.
sometimes is not, depending upon the number of vehicles coming through, depending upon the number of staff that they have working there at the time. And then the pickup window is here.
Oh, okay.
So you
okay.
have from here, this point, all the way back around to this side to be able to queue vehicles. And like I said,
Can you stay there? So what is the lines? Is that people parking the cars, walking across to enter the building, the dark lines? Yes, what are they?
yes, this is a crosswalk to the
Crosswalk.
sidewalk, which, you know, from a public sidewalk, that was again, came up from the conversation that we had with the staff, that they wanted to make sure that we had a public connection to the sidewalk. From a grade standpoint, this is where it makes the most sense to have it. Because we're elevating the building significantly as it comes from 69th Street, there's no way to have just a direct pedestrian connection and keep it ADA compliant. So the ADA compliant place to make our connection is here.
So how are we providing safety, are you providing safety for those people coming through the drive-through to pay and someone in a wheelchair and someone pushing the person in the wheelchair from entering, like, is the onus on the person placing the order to pause, stop, let the person go through before they pay or leave from paying to go pick up?
Yes, it will be. I mean, that's, the reality is, they have to yield to the pedestrian in that situation.
Will there be markers there or some sign?
Yeah, we obviously the painted crosswalk is a marker in and of itself for a pedestrian crossing. But if we need to add another sign there that denotes the pedestrian crosswalk, we can certainly do so. And to be clear, these are all things that will be vetted as part of the land development process when we go through that process with the township. So this is not those are great questions and great comments. We certainly appreciate them because, you know, looking at a plan, we don't sometimes see all the minutia and questions that might come up. But that will definitely be vetted as part of our overall land development plan.
I'm going to piggyback off of Ms. Woodard's question and probably tie it into the next thing you were going to talk about. But as you cross that crosswalk, 2 questions. Can you indicate for the board where the customer access points are to the building, as well as is everything within that, we'll call it the center oval that contains the building, is that all paved? Or how is pedestrian circulation working to get to the building?
So from that particular point, yes, the area, you can see where this kind of speckled pattern is that's on here. That's meant to denote concrete. So this whole area back here will all be concrete all the way around to this point here. What they do between the windows themselves, I'm not 100% sure. There's no reason for sidewalk there because we don't want people walking between, you know, the building and the vehicles at that particular point. Frankly, we would have loved to bring this crosswalk further up to this point here, but again, from a grade situation, we just can't make it work and make it be ADA compliant. So the ADA access would be able to come across here and circulate around to this would be a main door here, again, facing out towards this parking lot. Whether or not we need to add an additional crosswalk here, that will be a discussion point again as we go through land development. We don't have any problem doing so. But you know, whether or not we need to add an additional point of crosswalk for these customers, that may become necessary. you have a door here and a door here. So again, anyone parked over in here can walk across to the sidewalk and come around to the building. But in terms of, direct from the sidewalk, ADA access is coming from there. And one of these, which it's not shown that way here, but one of these spaces will be an ADA accessible, van accessible space that will then have, the ability to cross over.
Hey, Josh, at what point do you talk about like stop signs and stuff?
Really more into land development, which the planning commission will go through.
Yeah, because I kind of think there should be a stop sign where the pedestrian crosswalk.
Yeah, we'll probably get a more detailed plan too with land development that will show all those intricacies.
Yep. Okay. Back to our relief, then under 550-22F1C was to not have drive-through windows facing a rear, that they would like drive-through windows to be facing a rear or side yard and not a public street, is the way that it's written in the code. Again, from a circulation standpoint, from an orientation standpoint, we looked at many other options here, but there's no way for us to put that drive-through facing basically towards the Wawa without turning the whole building around and facing our back to 69th Street. So from an operational standpoint, from a functional standpoint, the drive-through point of pickup needs to be on the Patterson Avenue side of this building.
But again, the menu boards where you order, that faces the rear.
The menu boards face the rear, it's the pickup point. Again, I believe the way that it's worded says drive-through windows.
Right.
Should face towards a rear or side yard. If we weren't on a corner lot, we'd be facing likely a side yard in this type of a situation, but because we're on a corner lot and the way the orientation needs to be, there is no way for us to orient that building and have the drive-through pickup points be, or windows be facing a side or rear yard. And then under 550-22F5B calls for unobstructed sidewalks along the facade and a setback of sidewalks. I apologize because I don't know what the setback requirement is for sidewalks from the building, but I believe that typically they're asking for a short landscape area between the building and the sidewalk as it relates to the building itself. Because of just how crunched we are for room here on this site, we don't have the ability to put that landscaping there. What we've done is try to push the landscaping towards the outside edges of our property, towards the residents in the rear, towards the corner at 69th and Patterson. We're actually going to have a fairly substantial green area there as right at the intersection, which again, we think will be more attractive, but not to be placed between the building and kind of that first curb line there. So that's part of it. The other part is, as I mentioned before, because you've got points where the windows actually come right to the curb line, we can't get a sidewalk that goes all the way around this building. We've put sidewalk everywhere we can. We're also putting public sidewalk and connections in here where we need to along our frontage. But as it relates specifically to the building, which is how we interpret this section of the ordinance, we think that there's relief needed for that portion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chartrand. And then that takes care of all the area and bulk relief for the actual development of the property. And we are asking for some relief on signs. Would you comment on the need for that relief?
Sure. So again, in terms of the number of signs for the building, we do not believe that there's relief required. We've got a total of 4 signs, 3 that are considered wall signs. Those are the Burger King logos that we looked at previously. And then the 1 canopy sign, which is the flame grilling since 1954. So there's 4 signs total on the building. The way that the ordinance reads is that the total sign area allowed is basically 2 times the minimum width of the building, which in this case, the minimum width of the building is the narrow side of the building that's facing out towards 69th Street. So that is 40.2 feet, which would allow us 80.4 square feet of signage. If you add up those 4 signs, we are proposing 120.46 between those four signs that are there. Again, if you look at the renderings that you have as part of your exhibit and the renderings that we showed there previously, we think the signage is appropriate. We feel that it gives us the advertising that we need for motor vehicles that are coming through and customers that are coming to visit the site. And we don't believe that it's, egregious or above and beyond, in this case, what would be tasteful with the type of development that we're trying to do here. It's typical for what this is a typical sign package for them, but this is a site where, you've got people moving through at a fairly decent rate of speed certainly on 69th Street as you're coming through here. They want to make sure that people see it and know. We've only got one point of entrance on either side on either roadway. So we want to make sure that they can get in and see the establishment there.
And those four signs are the three burger signs, I'll call them, and then the flame grilling since 1950 something,
Yeah.
or that
Correct.
1954.
So again, if you kind of zoom all the way out and see the entirety of the building facade, again, maybe it's my opinion, hopefully it's yours, but that is, we don't believe that is obtrusive as it relates to the overall building facade that those signs are on.
Is that building glass?
Glass
we're looking at?
There will be portions that are glass. What you're seeing is glass. All of this is glass here, and around the doors. I believe that there's glass just above.
Right, is
where you've got these
above,
two canopies.
to the right of the canopy and the Burger King?
This will not be glass.
That's not glass, okay.
Glass. That will be, varied materials, and I don't know. I'm not the architect, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but
I thought it
you
was
could see
glass,
that there'll be
but-
portions that'll have a brick look. I actually have a colorized version of the rendering in my bag too, if you care to
That's
see
fine.
it,
I
but.
was just curious.
All right, Matt, and then the
Yep.
the vinyl graphic above the menu board?
Yeah, so the last is from section 550-37E2A. And again, based on our reading and interpretation, we weren't sure whether or not this relief was technically required. But if it is considered to be, and those are for the order points, the menu boards themselves, right? So the menu board, you can see it right there, actually has a canopy that overhangs your vehicle. So when you pull up to order, if it's raining, you're not getting rain in your car. The actual screen itself, it's basically a television that's mounted inside that box so that they can change based off of specials, based off of time of day, whatever it is. It's, the days of the old changeable copy menu boards is gone. There's an LG TV built into this, basically, that acts as that menu board. So this is the only area where you actually have the menu items. Here's the speaker post, the lighting, the canopy over top. But that height of that is 8 feet. 8 feet, 8¼ inches total to the top of that, which again, from the standpoint of, as we read it and maybe in discussion with the zoning officer, in an abundance of caution, if that's determined to be a ground sign, then we need relief as it relates to the height.
So, and the question, and Mr. D'Amico, this may be for you, but the question you're asking the board is whether the addition of flame grilling since 1954 on this menu podium makes it a sign that is then subject to the 6-foot height requirement? That's the interpretation question,
That's
essentially?
That's correct.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, I think you answered this, but to your knowledge, is the sign package that's being proposed here typical for a Burger King of this type of location and this size restaurant?
It is.
Okay. And are you familiar with the standards for variances set forth in the Upper Darby Township zoning ordinance at section 550-54J2?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you've reviewed them.
Yes.
Okay. And as a licensed professional engineer, having studied the property, the existing conditions, the proposed use, and being familiar with all the details to which you've just testified, do you have an opinion as to whether or not the standards for variance have been met where applicable?
Yes, I do have an opinion, and I believe that we have met the standards as it relates to the hardships presented here. We do have an irregularly shaped corner lot, as you can see, as evidenced by the site plan and where the lot lines fall. The existing improvements that are on this site, again, right up to the roadway, we've got parking, paving, everything right there that make it a challenge. We also have to raise the building, like I talked about, to try to protect against flooding in that area, and as it relates to the surrounding uses. So we think that this is the most appropriate location for the building, most appropriate location for the trash receptacle as it relates to the functionality of the site, and the best location for the parking overall and traffic flow for the size of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as it relates to signage, I'll just quickly say, location of the property, we've got lot frontage on 2 streets, the irregular shape, and we think that this is an appropriate number of signs and sizes to facilitate this development.
Okay. And does the dimensional relief requested by the applicant represent reasonable adjustments to the requirements of the ordinance necessary to redevelop the property?
Yes.
Okay. And is the requested relief the minimum relief necessary to accommodate the proposed redevelopment?
Yes.
Okay. And will the proposed signs have any negative impact on the site distances or any way impede vehicular travel?
No, there's not an issue in terms of vehicular site along the roadways, along the roadways or our frontage.
Okay. And do you have an opinion as to whether or not the development and the proposed signage would change the essential character of the neighborhood or have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or general welfare of the residents of Upper Darby Township?
Yeah, the property's zoned for commercial retail uses like this. You mentioned that previously, that the zoning for the site, and I don't believe that this proposal will have any detrimental effect on the neighborhood surrounding uses or impact the health, safety, or welfare of the residents of Upper Darby Township.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for this witness.
Okay, does board members have any questions? No? Members of the public, any question? No. It's a frequent visitor. Okay.
Okay, so if I might, I just want to move for admission of the exhibit package that I handed up. I think it's exhibit A1 through A7.
Any objection from the board?
None.
So moved.
Thank you.
All right.
For any motions, I would point out, you can bundle them however you would like,
Yeah,
but we
that's what I was-
should take the interpretation question separately, just so
Okay.
that's clear.
Okay, I guess why don't we do that one first? That way we can kind of get that out of the way. So I would make a motion that the vinyl graphic does not, I guess, is not a sign. Do I have a second? Right, that's the correct interpretation, that's what,
Correct.
yeah. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so we will do,
That would, just for clarification, that would render the alternative variance for section 550-37E2A as moot for the purposes of this application.
I mean, I don't really have a problem with any of the variances, so I don't know if it's, if it can just group them all together.
There's,
Um,
I have no issue with that from a legal perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll make a motion to approve all the variances for this application. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thanks for coming back.
We'll be one to Wawa soon.
Worth the wait.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want you to read that whole thing. It's like, you need to take a break afterwards. Bridget, for the record, and for any in the public, while Mr. D'Amico backs up, the board met in executive session on May 18th to discuss legal questions related to the applications for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Yep.
Good night.
Welcome
right.
back again, Mr. Chowdhury.
He gets the award for two last applications of the night.
Your third
Yeah.
time here, right?
Yeah, third time's a charm.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's not
And-
1 in the morning.
It's not.
This-
I'm glad.
Um,
I do apologize for my appearance. I just came straight from work and I was running late,
Problem.
and I do apologize.
All right, so we will hear the application of 4-9 of 22, application of Kwamar Chowdhury for a variance from section 550A, table 3-1 for additional apartment in lieu of an HVAC shop, variance from section 550-15 to allow less than 3,000 square feet per unit, a variance from section 550-15D, table 4-2, to allow a detached fifth dwelling unit, a variance from 550-17B2, to allow non-family occupancy of an accessory dwelling, and a special exception under section 550-17B, use of a accessory dwelling unit. This property is situated at 7501 Park View Road in Upper Darby. It's in the R3 residential district in the 4th council district.
Before we get to the testimony, Josh, did we get an amended application for this, or just for record purposes? Okay, that's fine. So we'll just add ZHB 5 as notice photos for the May 24th hearing, and ZHB 6 as proof of publication for the May 24th hearing. Mr. Chowdhury?
All right,
Yes, please.
Can you raise your right hand, please?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So, Madam Chair, as per your advice last time, I did apply the additional variance and, with Mr. Chast. And I also took some picture, which I brought it like I just wanted to show you that the garage, I mean, it's kind of confusing if the garage is attached to the building or is not. I let you and the honorable board members decide. So, but I did apply for additional variance and, with Mr. Chast, and I'm here to
Yeah,
see if
sure.
we
It
can-
was certainly advertised as such, and I appreciate that.
And this was the old pictures.
Okay.
Desk is unnecessary.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll mark A3, we'll just mark this photos all as A3 for tonight.
Okay.
And I guess this is a continuance from the last application, so all the testimony from the previous application, or does he have to go over
No,
everything again?
we can certainly use the testimony
Okay.
from the last hearing. So the questions, I think hopefully
Yeah.
everyone's okay in the hall.
Fall down the stairs there.
We'll pause for a second in case there's anything Josh needs to weigh in on. But let's say that we've
Yeah, that's-
we-
Nobody else should be here,
So you've added for relief primarily for the detached fifth dwelling. Is the structure that you propose, the additional dwelling unit, detached from the rest of the structures on the site then?
Yes, but it's, as you look at the picture, it is attached to the existing, addition to the house. There's only thing that separated those two buildings is the steps going into the basement. And then again, those steps also attach, it is continuous. Like if you look at the side of the Parkway Road going towards down the State Road, it looked like it's the same continuously building, the wall. Or it could be, or it could not be.
I think the
like,
garage was the detached part. I don't think there was a question whether.
It
the
was never
HVAC
detached.
was attached. I think it's the garage.
The garage.
It's the garage,
section.
yes, it
Yeah.
was the garage, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Feel free to ask questions.
Right. Do any other board members have questions?
So this is proposed, I'm sorry, while you think, this is
Go ahead.
proposed to be a separate dwelling unit, rental unit, I assume,
Yes, sir.
in the
Instead of a
detached-
HVAC shop, yeah.
in the HVAC
Right.
shop. So is there
Oh,
a
it's not the
dwelling
gar-
unit in the garage?
Yeah, I thought there was gonna be a dwelling unit in the garage. That was the thing last time, that you were gonna convert the garage to dwelling.
Was gonna convert the garage to the use of it was already there. We were, initially I got a requested approved to turn into HVAC shop.
Right.
Then I realized that while I was doing construction there, I realized that a lot of resident was asking, there's a lot more need for a resident to rent apartment. And I decided that I think I should change, I request for a change of use. Instead of HVAC shop, I can have as a apartment. Should talk to Mr. Chast, and he said you should apply for zoning and let the board member decide.
Is that for the, I guess, in this, if you don't mind,
Yeah, go ahead.
in this picture, it's the gray building that you're proposing to be an additional dwelling unit, or is it
This one. In the second
the
photo.
second one?
That's the
that-
one, yes, that's the garage.
So the one that was formerly 3 garage doors will now be a dwelling unit?
A dwelling unit, yes, yes, that is correct. Mhm.
So we,
Yeah.
the board's thoughts last time were accurate.
Valid.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't really have any other questions. I think this kind of.
Sorry about the gray building. We started
Yeah, they're
painting and
both
it
gray.
was raining and on and off and we haven't
Yeah.
finished yet, but it's gonna be beautiful as I promised, it's gonna be gray and black, we still in the middle of construction.
Yeah, I don't have no other questions, right? There's no other public here for questions, so I will make a motion to approve application. I don't even know what the, 4-9. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Love
your
all. Thank you.
patience.
This is
No.
Here so long.
Just
It was like,
a point of clarification, we're approving it as amended and
amended.
re-advertised, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just
thank
for
you.
the-
Thank you so much, honorable board members.
Thank you for your patience.
No,
Yeah,
that's
thank
no
you.
problem at all. My patience has been paid, put it this way. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chest. Have a good night. Thank you.
So outside of anything else, we'll reconvene for a special session on 6/22 for 5/1 of 22.
Yep. Make a,
Did you get in touch with Mr. Miller?
Yes, he confirmed he was available.
I will make a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?